with the, what we call hub, I guess hub is a verb, with the Department of Defense STEM efforts. And so, long story short, the Department of Defense gives money to STEM efforts to support K-14 education, to try to improve the pipeline to science and engineering and computing careers in the military, not necessarily active duty, but civilian military scientists, engineers. And we have a big lab here in San Diego. We're one of the top 2 or 3 communities in the country that have military connected families and military presence in employment. And so it becomes a really important pipeline for our kiddos who want to do STEM work, to potentially think of doing that work for the US government and specifically the military. And it's not all about making a better lasered or weapon to shoot something down. Some of it's also research and scientific study to help, prevent probably pandemics, and to help figure out what the right pathways should be through the ocean to not disrupt, blue whale migration and other kinds of things, as well as making a better tank that can withstand 140-degree heat when the Earth is 140 degrees because of climate change. So, so that being said, Yolanda is a really, really great ally and friend. I'm going to let her introduce herself. And she is the person who brought us our 2 speakers today. So I'm going to let her introduce them as well. So Yolanda, go for it.
All right, I have the double mute going on. And before I start, I'm going to say thank you, Beth. Me and Susan were talking today about virtual internships. She goes, well, how did you learn that? I go, oh, I learned that from computational thinking and abstraction. So I'm using it every day now. So thanks everyone for joining us. Like Susan said, we have a civilian workforce in the San Diego area of about 4,500 people. 2,500 of those are scientists and engineers. Of those, 1,600 or so have bachelors. 1,600 have advanced degrees, and we have about 200 PhDs. We've been at the Warfare Center for 80 years. So we were involved in such projects that we now call the internet, projects that we now call series, and projects that we now called, we let Elon Musk get all the credit for all those nanosatellites that SpaceX is putting in the air. So a lot of the things that we do, our primary focus is the warfighter, and a lot of those things go into the public domain. So, so a lot of things are research, some are development, and some are literally on the front line. Or during the pandemic, we've been working with UCSD in some additive manufacturing, and we've been working with the hospital ship also. So it runs the gamut. And I am so glad. I've been at the center for 19 years. And today I am so glad that Jennifer and Megan are joining us for this segment in cyber, because it's something that they do on a constant basis. But I also like that their stories of how they got to where they are is not a traditional route. So I won't spoil their background or how they got there, but I think it truly embodies that STEM professionals are not necessarily people who go, everyone's a computer scientist or a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer. I think what we share is the ability to critically think, and we really, really like solving problems. So I'll turn it over.
Thanks, Yolanda. So my name's Megan Kline. Like Yolanda mentioned, I have a sort of non-traditional background and way of ending up at NIWC Pacific. I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in math. My math degree is applied to information systems, so all the mathematics behind information systems. My thesis work was in cryptographic schemes. And I think, you know, a lot of us who study science and math get the question while we're studying for our degree, what are you going to do with your degree? You're going to be a teacher, right? And that was my plan from the get-go. And I did teach at the community college for a couple of years, and I really enjoyed it. And then I realized how competitive those full-time teaching positions are. So I started kind of branching out a little bit and found Nairobi Pacific, and I've been here for about 7 years, and have had a really tremendous journey. I'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's how I got here. Jennifer?
Yes, so Megan and I actually, someone have an echo. Can you guys, some of you guys know? Okay. So Megan and I actually went to the same school, Go Aztec, San Diego State, and then I also have a master's degree in mathematics. My thesis is also very similar to Megan, and it's about a crypto system, in especially the substitution boxes in the crypto system. So even though we have similar background, I also taught in a community college, enjoy it a lot. But during that time, I was going through a divorce, and I was, you know, just the money is just not enough, and it doesn't really pay well. And then, you know, you don't have health benefit and stuff. So I start looking for full-time jobs. And what got me into cybersecurity is really my knowledge of cryptography. And cryptography is actually heavily math based. So happened to be, you know, this little company that the owner actually, you know, do research in cryptography and pretty well known in the public. So he really liked my background, and I went in, and I have know nothing about cybersecurity, and they just put 2 big books on my desk. I say, hey, Jennifer, we're giving you 2 months of work to learn it in a week. I'm just like, okay. And I have been working for the risk management framework, which is like mandated by the DoD on, you know, on their system, for about 5 years. And it's really, really fun. And not only that, I learned about the cybersecurity side, the technical side, I also learned about that, you know what, the business side is also important, you know, because what ultimately you are protecting, not just the information in your system, but also protecting the people, protecting your assets, protecting your, you know, your data. And so, you know, it's really an eye-opener. So I would like to say that cybersecurity is not just because from computer science. Traditionally, it is from a more like an IT background that people, you know, used to get into it. But I would say maybe 50% of people when you encounter today, it might not be an IT background. They might be a business background, because it's very important that right now all the company, they are struggling for their budget because it costs money to implement all these security measures, you know, and on average, you know, company use like 5 different software, 5 different products to secure their system. So hey, you got to communicate, you know, the budget, and you got to ask the executive for money to implement your, you know, your plan. So it's a lot more than just IT. So, and I do want to mention one more thing before I turn it back to Min. I actually a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. So I actually went back to work. So everybody can do it, even you have a big break, you know. And I went back to school, and then I worked my way up to finally about 3 months ago, I joined Naval Pacific, and that was my dream job. And I just started my career. I'm 50 years old, and I just started my dream job.
So Jennifer, I think you missed the best part of that whole story. Why don't you tell everybody what your bachelor's degree is in?
I used to hire it. My bachelor's degree is actually anthropology. So which actually is really useful right now, because we're doing like behavioral analysis. So you do actually need to know, like one of the projects I'm going to work on is about natural language processing. So you do need to know about language or linguistic. You do need to know about culture. You do need to know about human behavior. So I see that even the anthropology is like, oh, nothing is really related to science, but it is getting more and more integrated, all the field, the science and the, human, the what do you call it, humanities, or social science is getting together. And I also know that psychology is a very useful field too. I have known maybe two very prominent cybersecurity, engineers, and they both have psychology background, and they both told me that they might not use what they learn in school in cybersecurity every day, but they use psychology every day in their work.
That's a really good point, and to that point, we just participated in a sort of a pilot study yesterday that's trying to evaluate human cognition and our ability to focus or decision-making processes while we're focused on a task. And so the purpose of that study is really directed at cybersecurity, like pen testers, and how to help support their cognition or evaluate the effects of things like deception on their decision-making ability. So that's some really interesting work that we're doing at Naval Pacific. So we actually came prepared with a bunch of slides and all this background information, but I think that's probably not the right way to go for this audience. And so we kind of wanted to open it up to Q&A and see what kinds of questions you have for us. We can talk a little bit about our technical work, our experiences working for the government. What would you like to know?
Yeah, so I'm gonna open the floor up for any teachers with any awesome, crazy questions. Yeah, so raise your hand and then take your turn and be merry with happy hour.
Can I just add a question for the teachers when the teachers are talking or asking a question, if they could also help us understand, like, how many of your kiddos, when you're teaching, have an interest in cybersecurity as a career? How many of them are like saying, hey, I kind of want to do this? Just be interesting to hear back from the teachers as to how known that is among the kiddos in terms of and Stephen has a question.
I'm Stephen Cerruti. I teach high school at E3 Civic High. In terms of answering that question, my kids don't know anything about cybersecurity. We know that San Diego has a high demand for cybersecurity. We are trying to position it as something that they can use not only as a long-term career, but also as something that they could do to help pay their way through college, because there's plenty of jobs out there prior to a college degree. My question is how do we connect them with those resources? Are there anything there? You're in a different situation, and a lot of our scholars may feel uncomfortable coming to work for your organization because either they or the family members may not have all the right papers in place. So, these are the big issues we're facing right now. Is what are the opportunities out there for them regardless? And then what do we talk to the ones about who are leery of working for a government organization?
Yeah, those are really great and important questions, like you mentioned. I think I'm going to throw part of those over the fence to Yolanda, but I will say, we try to partner and collaborate with San Diego State University, with Southwestern College, and they face similar issues. I mean, we want to be open and train the best and the brightest, but we do have limitations being a government agency. So back to Yolanda for the question about getting prepared.
Yeah, as far as preparation, due to where we are regionally, each regional area has its own barriers and challenges. However, at the K through 12 level, when we do outreach for cyber, it is agnostic to race, ethnicity, or citizenship. Because we're not asking those questions, because schools are not asking those questions. So whether it's through Cyber Patriot, whether it's through a CCTE effort, a lot of our outreach is literally off-site. So we position it that way so that we can provide the broadest impact to those who are in our community, because from a macro level, we have to pull from society. Now, as we go into the undergraduates or for graduate students, for, let's say, internships, then the requirements of eligibility change. But for students who are in K through 12, it's an opportunity that's open to all students. So we do not discriminate. As far as money for college, I think every parent, every teacher has that concern. And I call it every family needs a scholarship hunter. You know, and whether it's at a national level, whether it's a local level or a regional level. For the, I'll say for the government side, most of the scholarships are at the graduate or PhD level.
So I just want to add, I add 2 links on the chat box. One is like Yolanda was saying is Cyber Patriot program, which is a really popular program and go all the way to middle school. And I think they're trying to do in elementary school also. So it's a very interesting program. And then that you can get your kids excited about cybersecurity. And the other program I know, especially for the high school kids, is called it's called National Cyber League. And so it's like a capture the flag game, which is really easy. It's like they don't lower their level to the high school level, and mainly it's a collegiate competition. They do it twice a year, but you know what? The high school kids, they are really smart. They can definitely can do it. And then I have been, see some of them, and it's not really that hard. It's much the same what we do in the industry. So that too is kind of like engage them for more interest in cybersecurity. And as far as like working with the government, and you just tell them, just go for it. What you get to lose? You just try. You just go apply. Like you want to say, there is a lot of like internship at high school level too. I believe opportunities there. The government is not. I mean, they actually more fun because a lot more like state level, adversaries going to attack our system. So it's even more challenging. So I wouldn't say. Go ahead. I wouldn't say there's a lot of difference, but it does have its like just a little bit different than the industry.
So just to close out that question, I think one of the best things that you can do to get your students prepared is just exposing them to and getting them comfortable with working in the space. Do some Wireshark captures and show them what the communication structure, the protocols look like. Get them on the terminal command line and get them familiar and comfortable, because those basic skills are going to get them those jobs that are between high school and college. They're going to help them feel comfortable. I think especially with female students at the junior high and middle school, and sometimes it's a cultural barrier too. I feel like they're not encouraged as much to get hands-on and technical. And so just giving them the opportunity to like break down some of those barriers and make it more familiar will go a long way. And that's kind of where you guys are in the perfect position to do that. And I think our outreach programs can help with that.
And for the Cyber Patriot program, if you're all female student team, they can waive the registration fee. That's the last thing I heard. So encourage your female student to participate.
Yeah, I put in the chat that Tara Taylor a few weeks ago gave a talk on her startup of her Cyber Patriot team at Eastlake Middle, and super willing to, I think there was a lot of enthusiasm to have her share again how to start one up if you're interested next year. But Hope had a question. Hope?
Oh, I'm sorry if I missed this, but I was just wondering kind of what projects are you guys working on currently, or if you can say.
Yeah, we do have some distribution, like releasable information. So I actually have them up over on my side monitors so we could talk to them. So a huge effort that we have been working on the last couple of years is just the idea of transferring traditional IT security approaches to industrial control systems and cyber physical systems, so that they're sort of antiquated systems. They haven't changed that much in the decades since they have been in use and under development. And so a lot of times, you have power, electrical grid systems, water processing plants, manufacturing plants that are operating on the same technologies. With the advent of internet capable devices, they're seeing a whole new wave of threats coming in to these long-standing systems that they hadn't had to consider before. So one approach we've been doing is taking a look at commercially available security products and testing them for use on industrial control systems. So that's been a really interesting area of work. We've also done some static code analysis and trying to identify hidden backdoors or hard-coded passwords and those kinds of things in the industrial control systems components. So that's, any questions on that area of work?
I have a question. So it sounds like you don't. Am I the only one who can hear my echo?
I will mute.
Okay. So it sounds like what the systems you're trying to protect go far beyond like warfare systems. Is that accurate?
So yes and no. So the industrial control systems, they also have relevance to the Navy. So all of our shipboard control systems, we call them HM&E, which don't ask me what it stands for right now. Hull, mechanical, and something else. So using the same components. So I have this really great view graph that shows an example of a water processing plant and all the components and piece parts to it. You could pick those up and put them into a weapons loader. And it's the same components, same cybersecurity threats. So we're keeping things on the unclassified side and sort of open research side, taking a look at the industrial controls applications, but there's definitely Navy relevance.
I just want to add that the industrial control system is not unique to the Navy. So you can find it on the power plants, you can find it on the nuclear power plant, you can find it on the water plant. So in the industry, actually a lot of them is actually have the industrial control system. And in fact, there is a standard out there that everybody's supposed to follow to. I don't remember what's the name of the standard, but there is standard out there that they need to follow. And those are the systems that, just like Megan said, a relatively older system that we really need to. And they have a lot of vulnerability in there that we need to really pay extra attention on that. So, again, the government is not too much different than what the industrial out there, they're using too. So you want to talk about the Sputnik, Megan?
Sorry, which one? Sorry, I didn't hear which project were you talking about?
Oh no, I was just talking about the attack Sputnik. There was an attack on the nuclear plant once.
Yeah, so back in 2010, they discovered that a USB had been implanted in a Ukrainian power plant. So that was the Stuxnet virus, and that actually was able to. Yep. Somebody put it in the chat. Yeah, thanks for that. And so the adversaries were able to take control of the. I think it was a nuclear reactor, and I believe what they did was they varied the speed of the reactor such that it was within the threshold of noise, so no one noticed it, but it drove to wear out the mechanical pieces of the system. I think I think that's right. But yes, definitely scary stuff because it's impactful. And if you can imagine that happening on a nation state level, nuclear system, you can imagine it happening to our water supply, you can imagine it happening on ship controls. And so I think the impact carries over. And so the work we're doing, the research we're doing has impact across many, many areas. All important stuff. So that's one area of work. That project group of projects kind of spun off into, okay, great, now that we understand that there are security risks for industrial control systems, now we know how well commercial products stand up and support protection of those systems. What's the return on investment now? Now that we're asking our leadership to spend, tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars on security equipment, how do we quantify that return on investment? And that is a hugely complex. It's basically like an actuarial science for cybersecurity. And in doing research in that area, we realized there are insurance companies who are offering cybersecurity insurance. And so there has to be some foundation of research to come up with numbers on that. The most challenging part of doing that research, I think, is no one is willing to share data about having been breached. Everyone wants to keep that pretty close hold. And so it's very difficult to find accurate data about cybersecurity and trying to figure out return on investment. Any thoughts on that area?
I was going to say that with the CCPA coming out in California, privacy, and that's actually part of like cybersecurity too. So, there is a lawyer, there are a group of lawyers trying to learn about cybersecurity, and they are to get to law, and in about cybersecurity. And think about, like, I heard that, and most of you guys probably heard about the EU, coming up with their own, privacy. Gosh, it slipped my mind, can't remember. But the CCPA is like mirror that policy for the EU citizen. And I heard that a lot of the technical compliances in the law is like very difficult to achieve. So on one hand, you have all this like maybe 200 plus company going to build a software to match the to meet the compliances of the privacy, and that is like part of cybersecurity study too. So cybersecurity is pretty much touched like almost every single field, no matter what you are, no matter where you're at, in every single business, you are going to be dealing with cybersecurity. Another big area that they apply is the medical devices. There's a lot of medical devices, with wireless connection in the hospital. A couple of years ago, I got a call. It's like, hey, we really want to look for someone to do pen testing for our hospital because we are really afraid that, the adversary can get into our system. And I will share this horror story with you guys that I heard from a medical professional that she's working on cybersecurity on medical devices. So when you think about, patching your system, and when you think about putting like cybersecurity solution on your system, in a medical situation, it's very different than any other, field. So you have patients literally on the operation table, cutting them open, and all of a sudden your devices just go blank. And they were saying that now this is like, luckily it's not a hack, but it's their own IT, personnel scheduling a like patching. It's like, why would you schedule a patching while I'm on the operation table, someone on the operation, and they can literally die if the system not coming back online. But that is just show you how scary it is that in our medical, area that we need people to be securing those systems. Especially in the hospital right now, there are a lot of the system IoT devices, a lot of the wireless devices, and those have a lot of vulnerability in there. So, you can definitely share with your student about those, little story that, you hear, or share this horror story with them. So every single field, from small business to government to, our nation infrastructure as like water and electric power, they all need to be protected, with cybersecurity professionals working on that.
We have 3 people who have questions. Brian next, and then Min, and then Mr. David has put a question in the chat for you after Brian and Min. So.
Okay, how's my sound level for you?
Excellent.
Okay, first just a comment before the question, which is a security question. But when I was in graduate school, I worked for about 1.5 years at a Navy psychology research lab, and it was really a great place to work. I just thought I'd mention that. They had a lot more money available for lab equipment than the university lab I was at simultaneously. It blew me away what great equipment they got. And just as a sort of a thought I've had about encouraging girls to get into STEM, and this may not be relevant, but one thing that has occurred to me is, in addition to the problem solving aspect of STEM work being really central and fundamental, there's also it's very important in computer programming to have an aptitude for detail, because you're really swimming in a lot of detail. And really, watching the movie a little while back, it struck me that women have a long history of doing very detailed work. I think it was somebody in a Jane Austen movie doing some sort of needlepoint stuff. It was gorgeous stuff, but it was just so detailed. And I thought, maybe that would help some girls feel like, they can do the kind of tasks that are pretty central to this. Of course, problem solving is really central. But my security question was this. What do you folks think about putting your really important, say, top secret data for your company or your project or whatever on a cloud service like Amazon or Google or whoever, and my concern about it would be, okay, there's a computer, I don't know where it is, it's being managed and overseen by some team of people, I have no idea who they are, I've never talked to them, I have no idea what their personalities are like, how much can I really trust that sort of a situation? And I would really be interested to hear your perspectives as security insiders on that. And thanks very much for your presentation.
Yeah, great, really interesting thoughts there on the detail orientation of that's a really interesting, it makes me think about ways that we can draw parallels or even like gamify programs to the point where, or programming to the point where that becomes more obvious. It's really interesting thoughts. As far as the running to the cloud, that scares the hell out of me. We definitely are thinking about that. We're doing analysis.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do have service level agreements and we do have security agreements in place when we enter into contracts, but the government takes a huge amount of risk going that direction, and we know it.
And I will add this. Since I have been like in the industry, like working with other company before, like Viasat, I know the director in the Viasat, and a lot of the time that they really value female, not just the detail-oriented, talents, but it's just basically they're just thinking about the problem differently, and can approach the problem differently, and can like figure out a different solution than their male colleagues. So that I find some actually, director and mostly male, that they really value that the differences between male and female in solving problems. So I think that is something that you could encourage, you know, the girls to go into, because like, hey girls, you have a different thinking or different talents, you know, it's not necessarily better or worse. Sometimes you need detail oriented, sometimes you just need to think about a problem differently. So it's very good to have that gender balance in the cybersecurity field, right? Because the more different idea that we have, the more possible solution that we can think of. So another thing about the cloud, that all I know is like company loves it, government might not, but the company loves it because they can transfer their risks to Amazon or to Microsoft or wherever. So they are not responsible for certain risks, but they still responsible for certain things. So in cybersecurity, there's a saying that the weakest link is the human. So it's the user. So when everything go on the cloud, I just recently, you know, attend a symposium too, and we were also talking about all the data being on the cloud and stuff. Now that you can transfer some of the risks to Amazon, and Amazon have like what, I don't know, 200, you know, cybersecurity engineers try to secure their cloud. So certain aspect of the security risks is taken care of, but now you just have to be careful what you are responsible for, because they do have the share responsibility model, and you need to making sure that you still need to do the configuration right, you still need to patch your machine, you still need to making sure that, you know, people following the policy. And again, you know, I can't emphasize more, and even cybersecurity is very technical field, and it boils down sometimes someone just forget to change the default password, or, you know, just simple little things that, you know, cause the breach. So that's my experience.
Yeah, the other thing, just one last point on that for the cloud, you know, I think one of our biggest problems in the Navy and the services in general is the supply chain. We've got no control over the supply chain, and, you know, the big companies who are providing cloud services are not going to agree not to go into business with our adversaries. So there are going to be partnerships, and certain countries have more control over their business than we. If you connect the dots, I think we're in big trouble if we start dumping data in the cloud.
Yeah, and I think another point that kind of sets the DoD cyber framework apart from industry is that we have to think about cyber at the inception of a project, or at the inception of what we're doing, while a manufacturing company or a utility company, it could be, well, we're going to release that, and then if it gets breached, then we'll worry about, you know, something to fix it. So we don't have that luxury. We have to think about cyber in the infancy stage of things that we're doing on behalf of the Department of Defense.
Yeah,
I just go ahead.
I just want to echo what she said, because I knew for sure, like I heard horror story again, you know, from the industry, that some of the executive, again, because they don't really understand the risk, so they're willing to take big risk. And then what they do is, like, again, you know, cybersecurity is a very business, you know, mindset too for the risk management. So they will rather take the risk. It's like, I will rather pay, and a lot of time that it's really cheaper if you have something happen and you pay the price, than actually spending the money to secure the system. It is ridiculous. This is like 2-3 years ago. It's very, until that we have the CCPR, we actually putting the responsibility back to the industry now. So they will be, oh, okay. And also they are, you know, they suffer reputation, and then that affect their stock prices, you know, and that affect the stakeholder. Very, very business minded when you go into the industry, as really different than the DoD mindset.
Yeah, and I was just going to follow on Yolanda's comment that our fielding model, the reason that we have to think about cybersecurity upfront is because systems that we're building, develop, they take so long to come to fruition that by the time they're being fielded on ships, they're not going to be looked at again. I mean, it could be 30 years before we start thinking about a redesign or an upgrade. They're not maintainable in the same way that commercial systems are. So that's the Navy's challenge.
And I want to add that, so, since we have that challenge, or we have to think about cybersecurity at the earlier stage, or even at the design phase. And I think Megan can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we actually lead a lot of example for the industry to follow. And which is make it really excited to work in the government, in the environment.
Yeah, we have a couple other projects we can talk about, but I know there were some other questions. So let's do that, and then we'll come back to the other project.
So I have the next question, and then Mr. Dom Davis also has the question after mine. So my question is, you three, Yolanda, Megan, Jennifer, you guys are awesome, strong, powerful role models, and I saw that you also mentor Tara's kids. And I was wondering, like, what's the best message that you send to women and girls looking into cybersecurity, and also what are your organization's best practices for gender inclusion?
I'm going to say our best practice for gender inclusion really relies on you guys, as we try to increase gender and race equity within STEM. So with our K through 12, if Tara calls us or if J. Leo calls us, we're there. So we're really trying to be in lockstep with things that are going on within the educational systems to increase gender, race, equity across the board. And we also have affiliations with the groups that might be women specific. It might be SWE, it might be a NCWIT, it might be other cyber groups. But I see this as a partnership to where we're not coming up with our own best practice, but collectively we are trying to solve some of the same problems.
So I'll go next. I would address the question of, what message should I give to the young women and girls out there that who want to go into the, tech fields or STEM field. I would say, just do it. What do you get to lose? I would say, there is a lot of, they might see a lot of, boys or even the girls might even tease them, oh, you're such a geek and stuff. But I do feel like that you need to help those, foster a more equal environment, foster a better and inclusive and learning environment, that yourself as a teacher, you don't have that unconscious bias saying that, oh, if I have a technical report or if I have a technical part of a project, I'm going to assign it to the boys, instead of the girls. I remind me that I used to volunteer at the Olympia, like Science Olympia for the middle school. And I remember one of the parents was saying that, oh, girls is really good at the study event. It will give us a better chance to win, so they assign all the girls to the study event and assign the boys to the building event. I'm like, no, you're not doing the girls a favor. Yes, you want to win, but you're not exposing them and encouraging them to do something that might be not too comfortable, but that's where they will grow. And then at the same time, you also need to teach the boys that you need to work with the women, you need to work with the girls, as a team. So I think I see my kids and they don't really see that gender divides, that much anymore. They don't care you're a woman, they don't care you're gay, they don't care you're white, or Asian. And, they do make jokes about it, but they really our next generation, the new generation growing up, I really have good hopes for them because they don't see gender devices, they don't see racial devices like out in our generation that we do. And the most important thing a teacher can do is really foster that equal opportunity learning, good learning environment, encouraging both boys and girls to do whatever they want, whatever they like, and then making sure that might be intimidated, but you know what, it's not a bad idea sometimes have all-girl teams, and make them more comfortable. But at the same time, I don't think the kids is really seeing themselves that divided anymore at the new generation.
That's such an interesting point, Jennifer. I'm seeing the same thing with I have a 19-year-old, and then I've got two younger ones who are in elementary school, and it's amazing to me. They just don't let those kinds of obstacles stand in their way anymore as a culture. That's really interesting. And then for my message for girls is it's accessible. You can do it. So I like Jennifer's just get out there and do it. I think personally, I needed sort of a little encouragement. I needed a stronger self-image that I was capable of doing it. So having opportunities to succeed in this area, like Jennifer was talking about, I think is vital, especially when those groups may not get that kind of message at home. So yeah, I think you guys are in a really excellent position to foster that ability.
The last question, can you see it in the chat? It's from Mr. David. I'll just read it for everybody. It's because it was at 5:33 p.m. But his question was, do you have any tips on giving students more offensive type of practice as opposed to defensive Cyber Patriot? I've had students ask curious questions about how to perform attacks or what even is hacking, and I've been a little conservative about engaging them in such things. I'm also really only familiar with securing systems via Cyber Patriot program, or is it not a good idea for high school? I guess to talk to them about how to hack. And my son's in his class. My son's not probably hacking, but some of his friends might want to. So, any suggestions there on the hacking question that high schoolers are asking him?
I have a bit as just stuff I've hit across as a teacher. So the PKCTF competition does have offensive tasks in it, like buffer overflows, writing things like that. And yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. It's just like martial arts or anything else. You got to make a judgment call. Who am I teaching to this to? And how are they going to take the maturity to do that? And there are high schoolers you'll run across who that gives them some context for what they're doing defensively, and they'll benefit from it. And I think that's why it's in PKC.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's really important. It's important that they understand the consequences of what they're doing and the impact, if the potential impact. I think that's really important. But also, I think it helps them understand what's underneath and what's going on technically that they couldn't get from doing just defensive. I think there's some value in there, but you have to be careful.
I can add that, even that you are teaching those hacking skill, there is white hat hacking, there is black hat hacking. So even you are teaching those skills, it doesn't necessarily mean that, the student's going to be a hacker. And be honest, you don't even have to teach them any hacking skill. You can just Google it online and you can be able to hack into some of the systems too. So as far as afraid that they will do some bad things, I don't see, and you can emphasize that the purpose of the hacking, right? The purpose that I'm going to capture this threat and to identify the vulnerability in the system, so I can patch it, I can fix it, I know, and I can control it. So that message maybe is missing, that why you need to do that kind of hacking. And other offensive sides, I can say that I have been on the offensive side quite a bit, and mostly it's actually on the engineering side. So what we have a saying is like security by design. So when you're designing a system, you always have the security in mind. So if you do not know the hacking, if you do not know the vulnerability, you cannot build a system that is secure. So you have to train your student, especially engineering student. And some of you guys, I don't know whether you would teach engineering student or primarily computer science student, but it's still, when you're building the software, like buffer overload. That's one of the offensive like capability you can add on it. And then when you're building the software, you have to have that security in mind, that making sure that this software does not have vulnerability, and then we would not be doing certain things that you don't want other people to do to you. So you have to get that security in their mind earlier in the stage, earlier in the design process. And I've been pushing this concept because a lot of time that the engineers doesn't even know about cybersecurity. And then so they don't, cybersecurity is actually an afterthought. So when, something broke, okay, I'm going to fix it. But when you're designing the system, you need to put certain security measure in it and then think about it. And how do you know what to do it? And then you need to gain your knowledge of cybersecurity, right? And how you gain your knowledge? By hacking. That's how you gain. And I know this is going to be vulnerability, so when you build a system, you're not going to making sure that won't happen, right? So I think that message, like just kind of like turn the message around and making sure that the student know why you're hacking the system. It's not because you can hack in your teacher system and change the grade or something, but it's to know the vulnerability of the system. So when you design the system, when you become the solution architect or when you become the software architect, you know what to do to prevent those vulnerability in your software design.
Yeah. And I think embedded within that, the hacking conversation is the critical thinking and being able to do analysis and determine what an anomaly is when you see a whole bunch of traffic go across the network, for instance. So I think those are teaching points too. And like my counterpart said, it's easy to attack something, but it's far more complicated to figure out how to defend yourself from a likely attack and how to discriminate between something that is normal and something that is abnormal, or something that is posing as normal, like with the nuclear plant, but it is actually abnormal. So I think there's a lot of critical thinking and analysis as you peel back the hacking conversation.
I put in the chat too. I just absolutely love Jennifer's points and Megan's points about how there's actually, even if you have a kiddo who's in your class who's maybe gonna go and want, their dream is to be a lawyer, right? But somehow they're in the CS class, that they could start thinking, well, maybe I know now I'm taking this class, I know something about CS, because still only 40% of high schools in the state of California offer computer science. So to have the ability to take it in high school actually is such a gift. And then, but maybe you don't want to be a computer scientist or an engineer or a cybersecurity specialist. You want to be a lawyer, or your dream is to be a doctor. Still knowing about like the robotics piece, knowing about the fact that you could be an expert in cybersecurity law is interesting, right? And to be able to talk to students about the range of ways you could use this knowledge that you have built up in high school for future career areas is super interesting, I think, and really, really true. So, and on the accounting side, absolutely.
So, folks, we have 4 more minutes. Yolanda requested that we get a screenshot. So, if folks, look your best. If you can be on video, be on video. This is so we can just like some flyers and advertisement and look like we're doing stuff on a Thursday night. All right, so I'm gonna count to 3, and I think it's Command Shift 3. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3. All right, cool. We got it. I'm gonna send it right now. And with that said, does anyone have any last question, comment?
Yeah, I just I'll add that some of the outreach work that we've been doing is offering workshops to train all different kinds of audiences up on industrial control system security. So our group kind of had to go through the learning curve. We had a lot of young engineers and scientists who were coming from a pure computer science background or like a an electrical engineering background, and so they had to figure out reverse engineer protocols for these proprietary industrial control systems components. And so they figured all this stuff out and actually developed a curriculum out of it. And so we have a partnership with the University of Hawaii West Oahu campus. So we go out there and teach labs for them. We have taught, we have partnerships with the Air Force. We've taught their courses to them, as well as groups within Niueque Pacific. I mean, we're educating our own people about it, and reserve units. So that's something that Yolanda and I had talked about partnering on and sort of offering up to the computer science community. So if you have interest there, please, I'll direct you back to Yolanda, but we'd love to share that with you all.
Yeah, if you send it to me, I can post it in the CSTA MailChimp.
Is it like a one-day course, or is it like a series? How does it work?
It's flexible and it's scalable. So usually for the universities, we go out and do about 5 or 6 labs, but we've also done it in a half a day.
Would this be something that you do with grade and UC San Diego?
Yeah, I didn't hear the entire question, but I think you were asking about doing it at a university.
At UC San Diego.
Yes, yeah, I mean, it's definitely an option.
That sounds great. Well, I want to thank you, Megan, and Yolanda, for bringing us these wonderful folks to talk to about their work. And we know they do way more work than that out in the schools to support the kids in Sweetwater and in San Diego Unified and other places. So I think they're definitely, obviously, super good partners for the K-12 community and the K-14 community. I don't know if you guys saw, because you were talking, that Tasha Frankie had said that she's at in the community college system, but they are actually creating a cybersecurity pathway through there. So I'm sure she might be interested in reaching out to you, especially with your community college backgrounds as well. So, but I really want to thank you. This has been wonderful. I've learned a lot. I've learned some new terms and some scary stuff. So I was a little terrified.
Cybersecurity.
But I just want to, give you a round of applause, everybody. Muted round of applause. Thank you. So, any last words, Min or Yolanda, before we sign off at 6 o'clock?
Yeah, we can sign off. Y'all can sign off. But just for logistics, this video will be posted next Tuesday. Yolanda, if you need like hard copies of the screenshot, I can send it to you through email. Next week we'll conclude our happy hour series for this whole school year, and then we might have 1 or 2 during the summer.
Yeah, to keep us posted. But if you ever, it's a community, so I know Art would want me to say, if anybody in the CSTA community needs anything from any of us, feel free to reach out, whether we're having this regular series or not. So we're constantly thinking of you. So thank you guys. Thank you, everybody. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Yes, absolutely.